I cough constantly. What can I do? I cough constantly. What can I do? This is Dr. Jamie Koufman, and this is my Reflux Hour. Today I want to talk about a chronic cough, and I can tell you from the start, most chronic cough is associated with reflux. Um, I've been looking at this for a long time, and I realized today that I could create an algorithm based upon answers to these questions. Is the cough wet or is the cough dry? In general, wet means reflux, dry means, really dry, means neurogenic or bad nerve, sick nerve syndrome, vagus nerve. Is the cough constant? Is it every day the same? Is it all day? Is it no pattern? Or is it intermittent? Can you have a month or two where it all goes away and then it comes back in a vengeance? Is the cough associated with any other symptoms? Is the cough associated with reflux symptoms? Too much mucus, chronic throat clearing, sensation of a lump in the throat, hoarseness. So is it associated with those symptoms? Do you cough at night ever? If you cough at night, by the way, if you wake up coughing in the middle of the night, I've seen an ad. They say, "Oh, you've got COPD," and they show this beautiful young woman in her 20s. She doesn't have COPD. Period. She's got reflux. Okay, so if you wake up in the middle of the night coughing, it's reflux, and you may gasp for air like a fish out of water with laryngospasm. And the final variables, do you have shortness of breath or not? I talk about shortness of breath a lot. When I talk to people and I do consults, when I do consults, you can do a consult with me. Just sign up, jamiekoufman.com. It has a link. But if they circle shortness of breath, I ask them, listen, is the shortness of breath, there are three major types, three common patterns. Is it with exertion? You're going up 2 flights of stairs and you're huffing and puffing. You ought to be able to get up those 2 flights without huffing and puffing. Do you have trouble getting air in and out? That's an airway obstruction problem. Asthma is one type. Laryngospasm is another. Or do you have difficulty or discomfort with taking a full breath in? That is, there's a fancy word, pathognomonic for respiratory reflux. Pathognomonic is a fancy word which means that symptom is associated with that disease, period. So if you have trouble taking a full breath in, that is reflux, and it's actually vaguely mediated. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with your lungs. So you could say, okay, I'm going to take someone who has constant cough, not associated with meals, never wakes up at night, has no shortness of breath, and has no associated symptoms. Neurogenic cough. And there's an article on that, neurogenic. By the way, read the articles. If you haven't done so, sign up for the blog, jamiekoufman.com. Every week you'll get an email with the topic, and if you want it, you'll open it. If you don't, you delete it. And tell people about that, because it's a good way for us to get more visibility, and that's what I want, to reach more people. The 3 most common causes of cough, and by the way, we have to make one other distinction. Is it pulmonary or non-pulmonary? And by the way, they do go together. For example, I've had a number of patients get lung cancer who never smoked, never had any risk factors other than they had reflux when they came to see me, big time. So even silent reflux. So silent reflux can cause cancer, throat cancer, lung cancer, esophageal cancer. I think there's some biggies here, and in the non-pulmonary, if you had a normal chest X-ray, you probably should have one with a chronic cough. You probably should have a test for TB. That's what we always did. We used to do a PPD, and now there's a blood test for it. And then here's the data. 50% have reflux and a neurogenic cough. 40% have reflux alone, and 10% have neurogenic. Those numbers have changed also. So only 1 out of 10 has a neurogenic cough. But a bunch of people have neurogenic cough and a reflux cough, and the reason for that is vagal neuropathy. So the vagus nerve runs right under the lining membrane of the throat. It can get sick with a virus. It can be COVID. It can be the flu. It can be whatever. And the vagus nerve gets sick, and then it controls reflux, it controls everything. The vagus nerve controls the respiratory system, the digestive system, the cardiovascular system, and a number of your organs. So post-viral vagal neuropathy is a whole separate topic. I'm going to do a specific post on that, but it is discussed well in part 1 and part 2 of the Vegas in the blog. And by the way, for chronic cough, this is, to my knowledge, the only book in the world that actually discusses these issues that are the most common. So the two most common used to be reflux and neurogenic, but now is a new one: reflux, ACE inhibitors, then neurogenic. And by the way, I always like showing people this. This is my most fun one. This looks like a nice cover. It's chronic cough, and it's Japanese. But it's been translated in Polish, and it's been translated in a lot of languages, this book. And the reason is because there's no other material like it, except for the material I put on the blog. And next week, I'm either going to put up a blog on this kind of algorithm, or I'm going to put up a blog just on dry cough, because dry cough people, they don't know where to go, what to do. And they're not refluxes, generally. So most of you have wet cough and you have reflux. If you have pulmonary disease pre-existing, I just did a consult with a woman who has cystic fibrosis and reflux. If you have cystic fibrosis and reflux, you can die sooner. So it accelerates those diseases of the lung. And furthermore, you don't have to have a normal chest x-ray. We have people who have, if you look at the respiratory tract, it looks like a tree upside down. The trachea and the bronchi and two big branches, and then it goes to smaller and smaller. When you see just a few little streaks around the bronchi, that's from reflux. And by the way, there's one other thing that I might mention, and that's people who have recurrent pneumonia. Recurrent pneumonia is reflux, okay? There's no such thing as recurrent pneumonia in an otherwise healthy person who's not immunocompromised. And in fact, there can be an aspiration pneumonia in serious or a mild pneumonia. But it's very rare for any other cause other than reflux to cause recurrent pneumonia. So I want to go back and talk about reflux and cough. People who have reflux and cough, a fair number of them have shortness of breath, and they usually have, if they have shortness of breath, 2 of the 3 or all 3, on exertion, problems with airway obstruction, and difficulty taking a full breath in. So inevitably you get the question, I've seen a workup, I've seen a pulmonologist, I've seen an allergist, I've seen all these different doctors, and I'm here to say that this is really a black hole, non-pulmonary chronic cough. And by the way, 4 out of 5 people with asthma don't have asthma. and waking up in the middle of the night coughing isn't COPD. So what I'm saying to you is that silent reflux, it happens at night. It can have things go on all day. And by the way, one other differentiation, if you never cough at night and only cough during the day, and there's no relationship to meals, to lying down, bending over, those are reflux cough. So the reflux cough is treated with reflux treatment primarily, and that involves diet and lifestyle changes, some famotidine, some Gaviscon or other alginate, and so alkaline water spray. So this gets back to the basic question, can you cure a reflux with just anti-reflux treatment? I will tell you that when I was in practice, I'm pretty much retired now, I used to examine the patients very carefully who came with cough, and many of them had partially paralyzed vocal cords. So I actually examined the vagus nerve by looking at the vagus nerves that run the larynx. And patients who came in who had reflux-related and neurogenic cough, meaning ticking off a number of the symptoms. What are the other neurogenic symptoms? A change of temperature, going into air conditioning, fumes, everything, diesel, exhaust, perfume, burnt toast, all those things make them cough. And so that's neurogenic type. But I used to treat the patients the same way. And so I treat them both at the same time. And if I treat the reflux and they come with a dry cough, then I just treat the neurogenic. Understand the differences are pretty similar to everything I've written. Neurogenic, dry, cough all day, never at night. Triggers tend to be things in the environment, change of temperature. And reflux is cough after meals, cough lying down, a cough bending over, and waking up in the middle of the night, gasping for air, like a fish out of water, and gasping for air. That's what makes you a championship refluxer. So what I'm saying is that many people have both. If you look on my blog, you'll see that there are 40% of the population has had a vagal neuropathy. We did a study, never published, but I did talk about it in the vagal article. But most of them don't have anything. So the answer to the question is, how many people need treatment for vagal neuropathies? Don't everyone say, oh, and by the way, I'm getting a lot of consults now. I'm on amitriptyline and Neurontin, it doesn't help at all. And the reason it doesn't help at all is because you've got a reflux. So we're going to get back to the question of reflux in a minute. And it's hard. And it doesn't work for everybody. What I'm going to recommend and do recommend, first is a detox program, which is a blog, detox. You can use, there's a search engine. You can detox, reflux detox, and up it'll pop. Most things will pop up. Sometimes the reflux, the research engine isn't so good. It gives you 30 articles if you say respiratory reflux. So that's what I have to say about cough, is that the patterns actually separate out people. And I just want to finish with the ACE inhibitor business, and then I'll move on to answering some questions. ACE inhibitors are a type of blood pressure pill. I don't know anything about their biochemistry. I don't know anything about blood pressure pills, except that ACE inhibitors cause reflux and cough. Ironically, my son said to me one night, I coughed like crazy, and I said, anything else going on? He said, not much. I said, it happens at night too. I mean, before bed. And he told me he went on an ACE inhibitor for his blood pressure 3 months before. Stopped the ACE inhibitor, and no more cough. The whole thing went away. So if you're on an ACE inhibitor and you have reflux, whether it's a chronic cough or any other type of reflux, globus, dysphagia, hoarseness, and so on, ask your doctor if your blood pressure medicine is an ACE inhibitor, and explain why you'd prefer to be on another type of blood pressure medicine. So I want to answer some questions here. I got some props for this. I get a question often, is coffee okay? People want, this question is, how do I get off coffee? I think it's a trigger food, but I need a caffeine boost in the morning. And that's from Jan. So I drank coffee my whole life. I went so far as to get a fancy espresso machine for my home, and I loved coffee. And over the course of a month or two, I'm talking about maybe a year ago, I started to notice that I didn't feel good. Didn't feel good. My stomach didn't feel good. And one morning I had a cup of coffee, black coffee, and I went and I threw up. So that was the moment that I stopped drinking coffee. Coffee is a trigger food for a small percentage if it's taken in moderation. Remember, caffeine makes the lower esophageal sphincter relax, so you don't want to have a lot of coffee. If you drink a pot of coffee before noon, you're going to have reflux. But a cup or two doesn't do much harm for many people, but unless it's a trigger food. And by the way, if it's a trigger food, it's a trigger food whether it's caffeinated or non-caffeinated. So, here's my story. I figured out what I wanted to do. So I get up in the morning and I have English breakfast tea. And it has a lot of caffeine. And I have 2 cups of it and I let it brew pretty good. Use the same bag. And then I move over to either Earl Grey tea or Lady Grey, which is a relatively new product, which is a little sweeter and not as strong. And that'll take me through the morning and early afternoon. And then I go to some kinds of herbal tea. And my favorite is turmeric bliss. And then finally I finish with chamomile. And I drink chamomile after dinner, and I drink chamomile in the evening. Chamomile will not make you reflux, and I've just written an article, believe it or not, on chamomile. It's my most recent blog. It's up there. So you can do well substituting tea, and you may find, gee, I can drink black tea. I can't believe black tea is bad, but I can drink green tea. So let me give you some equivalencies. A cup of black tea is half the caffeine of a coffee, drip brand coffee. So you may need 2-3 cups to get your caffeine. Green tea is only a third. So people tend to drink more green tea, and that's fine with me. And I make a little pot, and I use the same, same leaves in there, and do whatever it is, three, maybe sometimes 4. The next question is, pregnancy can cause reflux, can so menopause? Well, first, I want to remind you that I've been writing this blog for you to get my information in the public domain now for 2 years plus. So there's an article on pregnancy, and it's a good article. And but the second part of the question I really can't answer with certainty, which is menopause. I don't think menopause is associated with reflux, but honestly, I don't know for sure. There are a lot of ways to avoid menopause. The only safe way that I know of is with the estrogen cream. Seems to be pretty good and not associated with any cardiac or other complications. Are there any supplements, natural remedies to reduce stomach acid instead of PPI? So understand that the treatment is not to reduce stomach acid. I don't care how much acid you have in your stomach. Okay? It's to reduce stomach acid where it should not be, in your esophagus or respiratory tract. And so that is not a natural remedy issue. If you're eating at 8 o'clock and going to bed at 11, you're refluxing every night, if that's your big meal of the day. So you need to understand the major risk factors are alcohol, distance between when you eat last and bedtime, and all the other variables include a diet, nothing out of a bottle or a can except water. They're all acidified by law. Coke has the same pH as lemon, has the same pH as stomach acid. So I did do a blog, however, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the good ones were the ones that might help. The bad ones were the ones that you pay money for but don't do anything. And I put DGL, by the way, in that category. And then there's a bad group that actually make your reflux worse. So read that article on supplements. I think if you type in supplements or good, bad, ugly, something like that, it'll pop up. Next question. Is the treatment the same for bile reflux and acid reflux? Bile reflux doesn't exist. Okay, when doctors don't see a standard pattern, when GI doctors don't, they call it bile reflux. It may exist, but it's so rare. Let's just put it this way. I've done in my lifetime probably 30 to 40 pH studies with the best equipment money can buy, with the same little chip you use to make buy an expensive pH meter, ISFET chip. And we go in the stomach, we see acid every time. Okay, if we don't see acid, we know that they don't have reflux. They have pernicious anemia, which is really rare. I've seen 1 or 2 cases in my career. So there's no such thing as low acid, and my opinion is no such thing as bile. It's a rare commodity. So the treatment for bile acid reflux and bile reflux and acid reflux, I don't know. I never treated bile reflux. If my gut heals, this is Michelle, if my gut heals, will my symptoms stop? Well, I need to reduce the stomach acid to stop GERD and LPR symptoms. Let's get back to the same question. We don't care how much acid there is in the stomach. What happens is you start refluxing, and the valve that connects the esophagus and the stomach gets swollen and stiff, and it doesn't work as a valve anymore. And the more you reflux, the stiffer and more swollen it gets. If you have reflux and you reflux when you bend over, your lower valve is basically gone to Bimini for vacation. So it's really about getting rid of the reflux. So understand, doing things that make your reflux better don't work very well. The whole concept that I have is that if you stop the reflux cold in its tracks for a month with a program, which is the detox program, and you read about reverse intermittent fasting, it's another blog that's recent, intermittent fasting. If you read about those things and you do them for a month, the truth of the matter is it's not go back to business as usual. You should never, if you want to really take care of your reflux, you'll never go to a fast food restaurant again. Okay, the fried chicken sandwich, the Whopper, all those things are off your diet permanently. That's the way it is. American diet's terrible for reflux. So it's not a question of stomach acid. It's a question of getting it up here. You want to heal that valve, and you want to heal that valve. And if you are completely, if you will, saintly for a month, it should heal, right? If you cut yourself, it's healed in a month. Unless you have immunocompromised or poor circulation or something else, it's healed. When will my latest book be available? It's already available. The blog is my book. It's called Respiratory Reflux, How Reflux Causes Diseases. And when you get on the blog, it's all over the place. You got an article on alkaline water, you get an alkaline one on reflux at night, you get another one on what is pepsin. So all it is, in a sense, are all the blogs that I've put together, plus a few other things about healthcare, and the prologue and the epilogue. So a lot of the book is written online and available to you. I saw you a long time ago and you recommended Manuka honey. Can you tell me what name it is, and can I remember? I stopped using it. See blog. All right, see blog. There's a Manuka honey blog. It doesn't matter which one you use. You can buy it. There's 40 of them online. Just make sure it's from New Zealand. It doesn't have anything else in it. So they come with different strengths. Manuka honey is sort of a superfood. It's antibacterial. It's antifungal. It's used to treat burns. It's being explored for many medical uses. It's been used by the native people in New Zealand for a long time. As a matter of fact, the whole Manuka tree they use for everything from building boats to thatching roofs and so on. So, but the Manuka honey is a monoflower, one bee, one plant, it's the same thing as sourwood. Sourwood, I think, is a monoflower honey. So anyway, it's really good for reflux. And a small amount helps. If you want to spend some money, there are Manuka honey lozenges with ginger, and ginger's good too. I stopped buying, I love them, but and they're good for after meals. I stopped buying them because I think they were about $1 each when you calculate it out. I like them a lot, but I'm not willing to spend that much. So Manuka honey, doesn't matter the strength. That's what I'm saying. Comes different strengths. The higher the number, the more the whatever it is, the antibiotics and all that in it. So, can you speak to the correlation between wheezing and acid reflux on one of your next lives? I've written 5 blogs about this. Steph, here's where the battleground is here. All right? If you have trouble getting air out of your lungs because they're swollen and the major airways are blocked, that's asthma. If you have trouble breathing in, it's not asthma. Ever. Never. It's not asthma. Trouble breathing in, you either have airway obstruction if it's all the time, or you can have paradoxical vocal fold movement or laryngospasm. But in any case, it's reflux related 90% of the time. So you have silent reflux and the type of shortness of breath. Wheezing, remember, just means noisy breathing. If you have trouble getting air out, you have asthma, go see a pulmonologist. If you have trouble air going in, you should see an ENT. But just remember, it's reflux. Okay, don't go off for a bunch of tests. Don't go off and have MRIs. Don't go off and spend $1 million evaluating your reflux wheezing. Read my article on choking, and there's several on is my asthma really asthma and stuff such as that. But the blogs, the posts are there for you. because as I talk, I only can spend a minute or two speaking, and they're not long. They're all about 1,200 words. I'm finding out people don't like to read anymore, so I'm going to begin to put more stuff up on YouTube, and I hope that's helpful. I'll be doing it soon. How do I know that I have a trigger food if my silent respiratory reflux happens at night and I don't have heartburn and indigestion during the day, especially? So if you have silent reflux, it's hard to figure out what your trigger foods are. But if you have silent reflux, whatever symptoms you have do vary. If you wake up in the morning and you got more mucus and you're coughing a little bit more, maybe worse than worse, you can taste reflux. In that case, what can I say? It means your reflux isn't under control if you're having such symptoms, and you don't have, so you don't wake up in the middle of the night and you don't have heartburn or indigestion during the day. It's silent reflux. But there's 100 million people out there with silent reflux, and they have symptoms that they can measure. Now, trigger foods. They're tough. I'll tell you a quick story about two of mine. I don't drink wine, never liked wine, didn't drink wine. I used to go to events, things, Carnegie Hall and all that, dinners. And when the waiter came along and said the red or the white, I'd say white. And when people got up to have a toast, I'd have a little sip. And even though all the rest of the food was fine, next morning I had reflux symptoms. So it took me a long time to figure out that wine was a trigger food, white wine, which is, by the way, a big trigger, a white wine. And if you want to have alcohol, the best thing you can have is a vodka with water and no seltzer or other, or water, or straight up, just a little bit, one drink. But the other one that was really tricky, you got to get well enough so you can identify a trigger food. So there's variation. If you're having the same big symptoms every day, there's no help. But I'll tell you the funniest one. I used to cook a great deal, and if I was hungry because I hadn't had much lunch, I would peel a cucumber and cut it up and have it sliced up with a little salt for an appetizer. And the next day I would have the usual symptoms. And it took me a long time to figure out that cucumber was a trigger food for me. By the way, it's not a common trigger food. I've only had 2 or 3 other patients in my lifetime have it. But green pepper is a common one, onions cooked versus non-cooked, and so on. Can respiratory reflux be in the form of liquid acid reflux or gaseous reflux? People ask me this question often, and the answer is, when you burp, that's gaseous reflux. So gaseous reflux, if it's getting in on your vocal cords, it's getting in your sinuses. So when you burp, especially if you can smell something or taste something, it's reflux. It means it was air, and it came out through the lower esophageal sphincter, and it took with it enough stuff to be aerosolized. And so, indeed, a burping of that type is usually, not always, reflux, and can be respiratory reflux. Final question I'm going to answer today. Alkaline water, can I just add baking soda to water? And the answer is, I don't know, because I've never done the experiment. I've written an article relatively recently on the drops you can use, which are pretty good and not terribly expensive, the ones I've actually rated them. But I don't know how much, would you add a teaspoon to a quart or a half a teaspoon? It would probably be a half a teaspoon to a quart, but you need to get pH paper, You could try it. I've never done it. I've never had anybody who did it successfully. I can't find my pH paper. Here it is. But you need, when you go on my last article on alkaline water, you'll see, you can click on that and get the right one. Because there's 40 different ones, and they don't cover they're not cheap and cover the range, pH range. So I thank you for listening today. I want you all to sign up for the blog, read for the blog, type in the topic that you're interested in if you're not finding it easily, because stuff is all over. And remember, an article that was written, I had one I was going to cite 2 years ago. This is not a normal blog. It's not like I'm posting on what's current now. I am to some extent, but I've already written the heavy lifting's been done. What is pepsin? Okay, there's 3 articles on PPIs, proton pump inhibitors like Nexium and so on. So, cough, mostly reflux. The Chronic Cough Enigma is the book for you, and you can find a lot on, if you look on the Vegas articles and then the neurogenic. By the way, the only 3 neurogenic things I treat are burning throat, and I mean burning throat all the time. Painful speaking, I mean, you're a translator and you can't work, and neurogenic cough. So all the other people, like me, I were partially paralyzed. There's nothing going to happen, nothing going to treat. Thank you very much.